Back, boxing fans, for another lunchtime boxing talk. The hospital across from my school. A little rainy today, so it's going to be a shorter one. I don't think I want to stay out in this weather for too long, just in case I got caught in the downpour. But let's jump into it. Obviously, 2024 has really picked up from 2023 when the PBC gave us a lot of great fights we've been asking for. Obviously, we got Inoue and Fulton, which was obviously a co-production. Well, you know, basically PBC and Top Rank working together to give us one of the best fights of the year. Dominant performance by Inoue. Then, of course, the PBC worked once again to make the fight between Crawford and Spence, which is a fight people have been asking for up to 5 years prior to it being done, which ended up having an unbelievable performance by Bud Crawford, dominating and destroying Errol Spence. And then, of course, Canelo Alvarez ended up facing Charlo, which was a highly anticipated fight, but it didn't really turn out to be that exciting because Charlo kind of only came for a payday and was really disappointing with the energy he showed that night. Now, of course, in 2024, we've been waiting for these PBC fights to come, and obviously in the next few months we're going to get a few of them. Obviously, Canelo against Jaime Munguia is a big fight to look forward to. We also have Tank Davis getting back in the ring against Frank Martin, with David Benavidez against Bostic on the undercard, which is a solid card as well. And then really what's galvanized this year into potentially the best year of boxing that I've ever been a part of is this big push by Saudi Arabia. Obviously, we had a little bit of talk over the years about Saudi Arabian money and people looking to make fights with the Saudis and get them to fund boxing. And of course, it didn't really look like that was going to pan out the way fans were hoping for. You know, Top Rank Bob Arum said, you know, there's no point really focusing on that because it never ends up working out. So it's pointless to focus on that and get your hopes set. And then, of course, Eddie Hearn continued to push, made some fights, obviously, in the Middle East, Qatar and Dubai. And obviously that helped open up the doors for the Saudi Arabian push, specifically in 2024, where we've already had quite a few huge cards with more coming. And it's not just focused on Saudi Arabia, which is really what's exciting about this. Because obviously, me as a boxing fan, I don't care where matches happen. I live in Taiwan, so whether fights happen in England, America, Saudi Arabia, Australia, you know, it's all relevant to me, or relative to me. But obviously, UK boxing fans, they want to go to the events, want to buy tickets. Americans in the same situation. They hope to have these big events in their country. Obviously, it brings money to the country. And so a lot of people were complaining about all these fights and potentially all these fights that were just going to be directed towards the Middle East. But needless to say, that's not what's happening. Saudi Arabian money is starting to spread into boxing globally, not just in the Middle East, but obviously in the UK and in the US, which is fantastic news for boxing fans. It just means we're getting more for our money. And that's exactly what us as boxing fans want. Step away from your politics and your narrative-driven, you know, American-centric PBC fanboys, you know, back and forth, UK, Queensberry versus Matchroom narratives. I mean, if you're a boxing fan that likes to watch boxing, then all these stories are just noise. And that's what consistently we've had to deal with for years. And there's enough noise within the boxing in itself, just with 4 sanctioning bodies and the drama that brings to the sport of boxing. The inconsistencies and the obvious corruption that people see with people being elevated and ranked highly, earning mandatory fights even though they've never beat anyone in the ranking system, and these kind of ridiculous things that obviously tarnish our sport. So the least thing we can get is actually get the fights that we want. And that's exactly what Turki Al-Sheikh is doing. He is making fights that people want to see. not just the Beterbiev Bivol fight, which is obviously a fight everybody wanted, but we understood that neither one of those two fighters were big names in the States or the UK. So what American or UK promoter was actually going to pay to get that fight done? And that was the big question. Now, of course, with Saudi Arabia on the card, now that fight can happen in the Middle East. It's a big fight. Obviously, you have Muslims involved in it, so that's something that transcends and sort of maybe makes more sense in the Middle East. And it helps build those two fighters on a more global market. And obviously the winner of that is going to move forward into bigger and better things. And that's a fight we want, and we're getting it. We don't have to worry about promotional noise, people complaining that it's not marketable and won't sell in their country. It's getting done. And that's all you and I, as boxing fans, really want. Unless, of course, you're here for ulterior motives. And if that's the case, that will be exposed eventually by you and your channel. Now, of course, we just got great news. Obviously, that 5-on-5 deal between Queensberry and Matchroom was a great idea. It's a very exciting undercard for Beterbiev and Bivol. But we also heard that they're going to be doing a version of that in the UK, which is super exciting because obviously Queensberry and Matchroom are UK promoters. They have primarily UK boxers, so they can put on a card that really galvanizes the UK audience. Not so much the American audience, but that's not what they're aiming for. So then what is Turki Al-Sheikh and the Saudi Arabians doing? Well, let's answer that question. Now they're putting a card on in the US, which is obviously going to be filled with more American boxers, which is going to galvanize the American boxing fan. Terence Crawford headlining, Tim Tszyu versus Virgil Ortiz, Mares versus Leo Santa Cruz trilogy fight. I mean, and many others on that card as well. It's great news. I'm super excited. I can't wait as we continue to move forward and see what other big fight cards are going to be pulled out by the Saudi Arabians. And what this does, it also pushes the American and British promoters to step up their game. And that's a good thing for you and me.